So I went off earlier, right? You may have heard something weird from my microphone. That's because now that my heating is back on,
hooray!
The vice mount for my microphone expanded enough that it fell off the table.
Less good.
Heat makes metal expand.
It's true.
It does?
Oh, yeah, that's what
I learned from The Simpsons.
That's what 5 years gets you at Drexel University.
Hello and welcome to Well, There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters, which has slides.
And is in itself
in and
a
of itself
disaster.
is also a disaster. Yes. I'm Justin Rosniak. I'm the person who is talking right now. My pronouns are he and him. Okay, go.
I am Alice Caldwell Kelly. I am the person who is talking now. My pronouns are she and her. Yay, Liam.
Yay, Liam. Hi, I'm Liam Anderson. My pronouns are he and him. And we have a guest, a literal friend of the show.
Yes.
Because I know her in real life.
I'm Fallon Kidder. My pronouns are she and her.
Why are you here, Fallon?
Why am I? I am here to talk about electricity. I have a bachelor's in electrical engineering from Drexel University.
And I think the first PE we've had on the show.
Yeah, you're an actual engineer. Yeah, you're an actual no fuck engineer, Fallon.
That is true. I did just get my PE from the state of Delaware. Thank you.
Did you get the stamp?
Yeah, I got a seal and everything. They're gonna send me a little certificate in the mail. It's gonna be. I was talking to my coworker today, and I was like, "Do you have any advice for me?" And he's like, "It's too late for you."
Now that you've got the thing, you signed the contract in blood.
Yeah.
I don't know how you don't go around once you get the stamp and just start stamping stuff like at random.
Then I'm legally responsible for it, and I don't have the insurance yet.
Do you want to stamp this episode of the podcast for us?
It's
been PE approved. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't get a PE either because I would be like a guy out there with a stapler gun, like that old XKCD where he just affixes everything to everything. I'd be stamping shit that was none of my business. I'd be stamping newborn
Golden
children.
Gate Bridge stamped
Approved.
number 42069. Liam.
I know if you stamp the drawings, you're legally responsible for it. But what if you stamp the actual thing in real life?
What if you just grab a guy and like hold him down and stamp him? Are you now responsible for him?
That's adoption. Yeah.
Yeah. We're dating.
No, well, it's my stamp is more of a crimp than like a wet. Like it's not like you don't ink it and then stamp. You have to. It's like a crimp. So I don't know.
That was only New Jersey.
No, well, mine is they asked for Delaware to be a crimp. That is only in New Jersey. I've only really done it for New Jersey for my boss. You know, he'll sign it and then do the crimp on top of it. So I can't even go around. Like I can't go around just like stamping things. I have to only crimp paper.
That sucks.
Yeah.
All right, 56 episodes in, and we have a real engineer.
We finally got one, folks.
Okay, so what do you see on the screen in front of you?
Wait, let me cut my ads real quick before we start.
Oh, Christ.
Oh, boy.
All right, cool. We have 2 ads. We're never doing this.
But what you've got to do is you've got to buy these lights that are going to make your selfies look better.
No, don't buy those. You're beautiful no matter what you do. Shut the fuck up. All right, 2 ads. We're never doing this again, so soak it up now. 1, breadandroses.net, which is like Something Awful, but for leftist politics. $10 sign-up fee, basically a spin-off of C-Spam. Yeah, go sign up for that. And number 2, our friend Bud has a self-defense company where they sell self-defense implements. I'm not going to go
self-defense implements.
I'm not going to go further into it. Davidson.
Wait, that's real?
Yes, Davidson _defense real. On Instagram.
I thought he was doing a bit too.
No. Our friend is.
I've seen
Bud.
the implements.
Yeah, we will leave it to the audience's imagination so we don't get
weaponized
fined.
snooze.
I said leaving it to the audience's imagination so we don't get fined.
I don't want to go to prison.
That's why we called the accountant, buddy. All right, let's do a pod. Let's cast a pod.
Okay. So this is Texarkana, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You will notice that there's snow on it, except one side, because this side of the road, that this is Arkansas, and this side is Texas.
You sound so enthusiastic there, bud.
Ordinarily in Texas there is no snow at all, but recently there was a lot of snow, and it caused some problems.
Including to the point of just like not being able to plow on one side, or being able to plow in Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas does the snow removal on its side of the road. Yeah.
So Arkansas has a functioning government on some level, and the state of Texas does not.
Correct.
It's
Shout out to
genuinely
Katie.
surprising in that regard. Yeah.
Well, shout out to the state of Arkansas.
Yes.
And Bill Clinton.
No.
Yeah. Shout out to the Little Rock Mafia, who killed Vince Foster, allegedly.
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 Not allegedly in our country. They killed him. But in Great Britain, where libel laws apply, we lead you to draw your own conclusion.
Is a podcast libel or slander?
What's libel? You are publishing it.
All right.
I mean, there is actually a distinction, Scott. Anyway, move forward.
All right. So one of the things I did in this episode is I skipped the goddamn news because it's all goddamn news.
This is the emergency goddamn news episode. Do you want the news theme anyway?
Yeah, why not? Okay, so welcome to Texas. It's America's Bavaria.
Lots of fat dudes, lots of beer.
Yes.
Very jolly.
Lots of Germans.
Lots of Germans.
All of our followers in Texas, that Roz's heater is no longer in solidarity with you. Hope y'all are, we'll say staying warm, but staying alive.
Yeah, like settle for that and then worry about warm.
There's lots of things in Texas. There's HEB. There's Buc-ee's.
Whataburger.
There's
the Astros. Fuck the Astros.
Yeah. The Astros.
Fuck the Rockets. Fuck the Stars. Again, sorry
fuck
to
the
Katie.
Cowboys.
Oh, fuck the Cowboys.
Fuck the Cowboys. Yeah.
Cowboys.
I can't believe I forgot that. See, Fallon, this is why we need you.
I
need this sort of engineering excellence.
Yeah, I am a born and raised Philadelphian, so I, of all people, get to hate on Dallas.
And they killed JFK.
They did kill JFK, yes. Other things which
you said it like it's a bad thing. I'm kidding.
But it's bad when they do it.
Everything is bigger in Texas, including political assassination.
Treason, yeah.
Yeah. Many disasters have occurred in Texas, some of which we have covered, such as the Texas City. Schools exploding, boats exploding.
Texas City exploding.
Yeah. Flooding from Hurricane Harvey. Most recently, there was
Galveston hurricane.
Yeah.
The other Texas City explosion we didn't cover.
This is true. Well, Galveston gets annihilated like every decade or so.
You call it Galveston?
Galveston.
A lot of judges come from there.
Yeah, Galveston is fucking wild. It's like, obviously, Alice, you haven't been to Atlantic City, but as far as I know, you do have to watch Boardwalk Empire. They're just like, what if we took a prostitution, drugs, and money laundering mart and we stuck it, say, right there on Aberia Island?
Yes.
What accent was that?
Shut up.
Atlantic City by way of Texas, I think.
Yeah, baby.
Guy wearing like cowboy boot length spats.
Yes. 10-gallon spats. Most recently in Texas, there was a cold snap and subsequent snowstorm that left hundreds of thousands without power or water. So what happened, right? What happened there? I live in the Northeast. It's been snowing forever now, and I still have power.
Ballard,
Yeah,
what did you
we
do?
had the coldest day in Scotland since 1986, and I still have power.
What did it get down to?
Like minus 20 something C.
Oh,
Okay.
that's
I don't know
pretty
what that
good.
is in Fahrenheit.
That's pretty cold.
But yeah,
Bam.
it was pretty good.
That's probably about -10 Fahrenheit, maybe
Negative
-15.
4.
-4. Okay.
Mm.
Supposed to double it and add 30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in order to learn what happened in Texas, we need to talk about electricity, right?
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. Yes. I here's the question. What is electricity? Because
All
I don't
right.
know.
All right. I've spent many, many years studying this particular subject. And the answer is electrons go burr.
wait. I have half a law degree. I think I can make sense of this. So what you've got to do is you take an electron and then you put it in a pipe and you got to make it go to work for you, but the electrons don't want to go to work. So you got to force them into the pipe, and that's called resistance. And then you have wattage and voltage, and those are the same. And then you have current, and that's also the same. And then you have amperage, and then the more amps that you have, the more frequencies there are. Is that about right? Am I doing right?
Almost, yeah. So electrons, they don't like each other, so they want to get far away from each other. And when you have a lot of electrons in one spot and not a lot of electrons, like 0 electrons in another spot, they all want to go that way. And then that difference is called voltage. Like the difference in the amount of electrons here versus the amount of electrons there is voltage potential. And as they move, that is current. And resistance is kind of like what they're moving inside of, because they have to have like a conductor that it moves. It's kind of difficult to explain, or I don't fully understand it. It's one of those things. So like even air has resistance. So you need anyway. So as electricity kind of, these electrons, they travel across, that's called current. The wires are resistance. If it's AC, right, they actually vibrate. In the States, they vibrate at 60 times a second. In Europe, it's 50 times. And apparently on the trains, it's 25 times. And
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
They used to have special power plants just for the Northeast Corridor because it's like one of the last 25 Hertz systems remaining.
That's pretty cool. I did study a lot of variable frequency drives when I was studying for the. I don't do that in my work, but when I was studying for the PE exam, I was studying that, and I'm like, you change the frequency. Why? Why would you change it? Just let it be. But it's good to change it because I already forgot.
Trains.
I promptly forgot all the reasons. Yeah. So that's in electrical grids. So you have a distribution of, transformers and wires and all these things, and you get electricity from one part, the generator, to another part, so that we can all plug in, our lamps and things turn on and we have internet and TV and stuff. So that's electricity.
And it's a big problem when it doesn't happen.
Yes.
Because now we kind of need it for everything to live.
And then there's also direct current where there's no frequency. The electrons just go in a line. What a lot of people don't know is that sometimes electrons go stale. So if you're having electrical problems in your house, one thing you can try and do is flush out your AC system with DC current and swap in new electrons, right?
Bad electrons get put in the electron wiggler. Wait, which one of these did they electrocute an elephant with as
AC.
a promotional stunt?
DC.
I thought it was AC
terrible.
because Edison was trying to prove that DC was better by showing how bad AC was.
Which is amazing as an American story being like, yeah, you can't use this, it's deadly, and the government then goes, man, we could kill people with this. Let's go.
America.
You're right. It was AC, and because Edison was pro DC and Tesla was pro.
It's also funny because third rails are DC, and people fall on those and die all the time. But I guess if an elephant stepped on it, it'd be fine.
So it's weird because you actually have to become a bridge between the high voltage and ground. So really, that's what kills you is you are bridging the gap between these two different voltages, and that's the dangerous part.
Why don't we simply build the human body more rigidly?
That's right. So like you can dance on a third rail in rubber boots, but then also electricity, because it hates you, will sometimes just arc over air because air has resistance anyway.
Yeah.
And then you don't even need to touch stuff. So that's fun.
Oh, it's terrifying every time I'm in one of these little classes that like teaches you new things. They're like, "Hey, this is deadly. You want to die in 30 seconds while feeling your veins like burn in front of you?" I'm like, "No," and they're like, "Good, use PPE."
I do like the rare moments when any sort of teachers in the physical sciences get to like hang up their coat and be like, "You want to die today, motherfucker?"
just touching two battery cables together.
This is like the opposite of like chemistry professor vibes, where they just explode something on the desk in front of the class and say, "Wasn't that fun?"
I saw the result of somebody who got electrocuted working on a substation, and there was like an arc flash, and like obviously the dude died, right? Because you do that. But the result of that was a perfectly charred sort of semicircle of soot and two perfect clean boot prints in the middle of it.
Jesus
and I was
Christ,
like,
Alice.
yeah, this is the Acme way of dying. This is fantastic. I like this.
Every once in a while, I had to go inside a high voltage room when I was doing building inspections, and I was like, I'm not going to touch anything. I'm not touching anything. I don't want to. It's all behind in like metal cabinets, but I was like, I don't want to fuck with this.
Which I from one of my projects, I had to like go into like a substation yard, right? And they're like, "All right, Fallon, you ready?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "We have to go inside this 150. I don't think it was 115. It might have been like 24 kV." And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, get in, like, let's go, let's do this. And I'm like, it says authorized personnel only. And they're like, congratulations, today you are authorized. I
never want to be authorized personnel in my life.
Yeah, they're like, just don't touch anything. And I'm like, listen, I lived in my house all of my life. I still stub my toe on like the table or whatever. How can you expect me to go into this substation and be like, remember, don't touch anything? Like, I'm gonna fry anyway. I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad I'm not in that substation anymore.
I think my least favorite part about electricity is a deadly hazard, right? Is like a lot of other things, like say various gases or radiation, are just invisible and they'll just kill you when they feel like it. But like a lot of electricity, while that's sometimes true, will also just be like, yeah, I am glowing a very bright color and I'm making a noise just to let you be aware of the fact that I can kill you at any time.
I kind of appreciate that it's less subtle though, because like as someone who is is very dumb, I need to constantly be made aware of my own mortality.
Your like hunter-gatherer brain needs to like know, I shouldn't touch the like wire that is glowing blue.
I always laugh because Roz and I were in a trolley museum in, where were we, Kennebunk?
We were in the Kennebunkport Trolley Museum,
Yeah. And they were doing restoration work, and Roz had to look at me and say, "Look at the pretty blue trolley, not at the pretty blue light." Because like my dumb ass was like, "Oh, pretty blue." Oh, and I was like 4.5 billion years of evolution. And this is where it fucking gets me.
Yeah, it's just, we inadvertently made this thing that kills you instantly and horribly have a really sort of pretty beguiling light to it.
I won't go near you, welding sirens.
And honestly, it's this concept of like, oh, electricity does what it wants. It can kill you at any minute. And we're still like, oh, we can control it, Like we have all these safety things in place. We're going to make it do what we want. And then we get surprised when it fucking doesn't. Like, what did you expect?
Foolish. Why did we invent agriculture? It was fine eating mammoths.
The Industrial Revolution and its consequences.
It's been a disaster for the human race. That's right.
Okay, here's a question I do know the answer to. How do you generate electricity?
Giant hamster wheel.
Thing go spinny. Thing.
The answer is turbines. Right?
Yeah, thing spinning.
Yeah, you take a seek and you spin them around really fast.
Oh, that seems to make you play Dizzy Bat, and that's how the East Coast gets its power.
And when you spin them around really fast, it generates electricity. I guess that's from Sikhs to the one. Sikhs carry knives everywhere, right?
Yeah, kirpans.
Yeah, so that's the reaction between the knife and a pair of electromagnets creates a current, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
let's go with yes.
Well, I don't know.
I was right the first time. A thing spins. And that generates the electrons or whatever.
Drexel guys just come in here and do whatever you want and complicate things.
Yeah.
You're spinning a big seat guy around.
Yeah, so things spin and the arms kind of switch and it creates AC voltage and it's cool.
You have a bunch of these connected together. You got like your electrical grid with like substations and stuff. And then you distribute power to lots of homes and businesses, and then people can watch television.
Yeah. Watch a podcast with slides.
Yes.
Fail to define electricity.
Would you believe
turbines?
Would you believe we are using electricity right now?
At this very moment, you claim to criticize electricity, and yet you record your podcast.
This is
using electrical current.
Black magic, I'm telling you.
That's right. I've just set up a series of like a summoning circle and candles around my computer
to hope that it turns on.
Because you asked like, oh, how do you get electricity? And I'm like, well, in my job, we have these solar panels and the sun shines on the solar panels and voila, electricity. It's DC. That's my job.
You can also you can burn coal to generate steam. You can fucking split the atom to generate steam. You can run a bunch of water over something to make it spin. You can use biomass to generate steam. But mostly, there's a lot of generating steam involved, which is fun. I like that. Yes. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it all comes down to make heat, make steam. Steam makes turbine go around. Electricity, boom, goes around 60 times a second. That gets you 60 hertz, right? Am I right in that? Okay, good. That's the assumption I used for the rest of the notes. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. So if you have like a big grid of electricities like this, you can then you can hook many turbines, many power plants together, and you can respond to changes in demand from some people watching TV sometimes when other people aren't watching TV.
Yeah, you can get visible surges in the British power grid at commercial breaks for sitcoms because everybody goes and puts the kettle on, an electric kettle, to make tea at the same time.
Yes.
Just heat up water on the stove. Jesus Christ!
No, that's work. Get a special, separate electric kettle. It's weird that you guys don't have them.
I have one.
I
have one. For coffee though, because tea is disgusting.
You're drinking the wrong tea, or you're drinking it wrong.
So gross. Tea is so gross. I don't want it to taste like leaves. I want it to taste like mud.
What are you?
Then you're brewing it for too long.
No, that's why I'm drinking. That's why I'm drinking the coffee, because it tastes like mud. But I'm awake.
Okay, so electrical grids have a lot of fixed infrastructure, which means we have to talk about what's a natural monopoly, right?
It's when like fucking things are laid out in a large rectangular board, and then you go
There's
around
a jail.
And
There's a nice man in a
naturally
top
occurring
hat that
jail.
gives you $200.
It's when you roll a 20 and land on boardwalk.
Wow, that's a good one.
How can you roll a 20 with 2 die?
Because it's
Maybe
a-
it's
That's
playing Monopoly with a
It was
D20
a
because that's the
D20,
only
natural
die that you
20.
have.
Damn it, Fallon.
Playing Dungeons in Monopoly.
Dungeons and Monopolies, yes. Try and figure out how to be the last guy put in prison for having a monopoly.
Oh, rolled a 1 on charisma. Oh, boy.
Standard Oil of New York, Standard Oil of Ohio, Standard Oil of I don't remember any of the rest of them. California.
There you go.
Okay, so capitalism, tends towards monopoly, but some stuff is more monopolizable than other stuff, right? It's hard to get a monopoly on like a lot of consumer products because, people like, I don't know, sometimes they want a toaster that looks different from other people's toaster.
Yeah,
right?
the curse of individualism happens. Or it's just stuff that anybody can make, so it's hard to monopolize, say, CrossFit lessons.
Yes. But some stuff which is really easily monopolizable is like a natural monopoly where your product has a lot of fixed costs. It's not readily distinguishable from another product from another provider. So, steel, that's steel. Oil is oil. I'm simplifying a lot there. Electricity is electricity. Some examples of natural monopolies. Other than that, highways, railroads, a good chunk of businesses, actually, stuff like Amazon and Google. Many years ago, monopolies would either be broken up into smaller companies, right, like Standard Oil was. They might be heavily regulated like railroads were. Other monopolies are just fully publicly owned like roads, right?
Yeah, flat out nationalization.
Yes. Then there was, eventually we came up with this idea of, well, what if we give the Bell system a legal monopoly on telephones, right? I think Bell at its height was allowed to own 85% of the United States telephone network, and they had some nominal competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because folks thought, well, if we have competing telephone companies, then we'll have competing telephone infrastructure, and it'll be ridiculous, right? Let's just have one phone company.
Yeah, because you don't want to have to not be able to talk to somebody because they have a different brand phone from you. And obviously you can't regulate some kind of interchange because that would be socialism.
That is socialism. Yeah, we can't do that. So, it's most efficient to have one regulated but monopolistic phone company. And that state of affairs sort of continues for a while up until the 1980s, right? Now, we'll get back to that in a second. Electrical grids are a natural monopoly, right? If you can't really, just start a new electrical grid on your own. Very difficult, right?
And you care about quality, but not of the individual product. You're not sniffing the individual electrons that come into your wires to be like, these meet with my approval.
Right.
You're not an electron sommelier.
Earthy funk notes. Just stick in your face right in it like it's a barrel of Texas crude, baby.
You gotta jab yourself in the arm with like a taser.
I detect hickory as you die on the floor.
I guess the closest thing to electron sommeliers are when cops do the taser training and they have to get tased. So I guess critical support?
First tase tells you it's nuclear power, and you sort of swirl it around, right? And you're like, 50 hertz. Went through this and this substations, right? And then there's, two guys judging
the
you.
terroir of you getting tased.
So, and grids are sort of centrally organized and maintained, right? You need to have someone dispatching power to make sure it doesn't get overloaded or underloaded. if you're drawing too much power, you might overload the turbines. They start to slow down, and then they go over torqued and they break, right? So either you bring more power online or you do blackouts or brownouts or stuff like that, right?
Yep.
And you have a lot of fun stuff that happens with like modifying the output of various power plants, including, for instance, running a test at the Vladimir Ilyich Lenin nuclear power plant in outside Pripyat, Ukraine, as a flex, and inadvertently fulfilling the 5-year plan for energy generation in 0.1 microseconds.
Look, it sounds like a success to me.
Yeah.
It's done. Why do you care how it's done?
Well, the planning agencies really take a lot of care to make sure that everything's working well, and they're constantly monitoring things and monitoring lines and checking what's switched on and off. It's actually a lot of work, and it's a pain in the ass to speak to any of them.
Yeah, energy infrastructure sounds like it's not good if you want a job where you want to be left alone.
It's government work, so you do a lot of nothing, and you're bored
Except
out
for
of
the
your
30
mind.
seconds
But that
you're
nothing
not
is
alone.
also highly supervised.
It's very, very important nothing.
I so want that job. You have no idea. And I just want to be like the people that are like, oh no, we need, before you can interconnect, we need all these things to protect our equipment. Like you can't just if you decide to connect to the grid, you can't just place 2 wires there. You have to like go through this whole process, and God forbid they have to upgrade the line because what you want to add is like or what you want to take is too much. It's a headache.
Yeah, you want to be the person that tells people that they can't open electroplating facilities.
I want to be the guy. I just want to be able to hook up like anything I own that generates electricity to the grid arbitrarily, like maybe a hand crank generator.
Oh, that's tight.
After a
Sell it
month
back to
of
the
turning
companies.
it, I'll get a cent back from the electrical company.
Depends on what system you're in, right? Some people get a cent back, some people get 10 cents back.
Depends on when. If you did it in Texas right now, you might get upwards of 11 cents.
Ooh.
Clutching my 11-cent check tightly to my chest as I freeze to death.
So,
What a way to go.
People who shared my vision were a certain group of graduates from the School of Economics at the University of Chicago.
Uh-oh.
So there's this sort of neoliberal reaction to municipal ownership or regulated monopolies even in the 1980s, right? You sort of want to take these regulated systems or even publicly owned systems, you want to deregulate them, you want to privatize them, you want to create competition, right? Competition
the
is
freer
what
the markets, the freer the people.
That's
it's
right.
true. And most importantly, you want to
If
take.
you don't believe it's true, you will be shot.
That's right. You will be thrown out of this helicopter for not believing that the people are freer.
So, especially you want to create some opportunities for financialization, right? That's the real goal of all of capitalism. So no one could quite figure out how to do this with electricity for a while, right? Since especially as a few big players integrated their grids for better efficiency, because if you demand sort of evens out as the grid gets bigger, it's more predictable, right?
Central planning is more efficient, but this is always in tension with how do I make money off of this for me and my friends?
Yes,
it's a dialectic.
So
and this creates what we call
yes.
This creates what we call contradictions, and those contradictions then become heightened, and then some interesting things happen, which we'll get into.
Revolution.
So
we're calling it self-defense products, and then we're leaving the rest to the people's imagination.
Thank you. Thank you for cooperating on that. I appreciate that.
We're calling it communal self-defense products.
So eventually, these grids get bigger, they get, I don't know if I want to say easier to manage, but more I guess they're it's easier to manage. You have finer control, right? But it's still like regulated, right? And you're just selling the power at a flat rate to consumers, right?
Right.
Can't have that.
No, that's communism.
Not necessarily at a flat rate. There are demand charges and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
I love to be charged not surplus. What is it? Surtax on the shit that literally keeps me alive. That's fucking tight. I love this system.
It's usually for
each individual electron enters your home, and you have to do a separate sales tax transaction on that.
Well, there's a difference between residential customers and, commercial customers, and then like larger, factories that are using especially reactive power and to power all their motors because they have a whole, assembly line of whatever they're trying to make. But, it's not, the concept of electrical billing is pretty complicated.
I don't know why that pisses me off, but it does. That you're just not just like charging me the actual amount. It's just like, oh, we have a mathematical formula for determining exactly how much you get. Like, I know that's how it works.
It makes
just the
sense.
idea of there being formulas for how much to fuck me is not what I want to hear. You know what I mean?
It makes sense to charge less when there's less demand, and that's advantageous for a lot of other. A lot of things like municipal water systems will pump water into reservoirs at night because it's cheaper to run the pumps, and that does benefit you as a water customer at some point. But one of the real innovations comes in like the 1980s when, again, the boys at the Chicago Department of Economics figure out how to take this system and design this sort of Rube Goldberg machine called the energy market, right? And
what if we turned it into stonks?
What if we turned it into
stonks?
So
that was their one trick for everything was, what if you could trade this? And I'm so glad that we've now seen it spectacularly fail as applied to climate change. That was its last hurrah, was like, we can cap and trade.
God.
I had made Tesla a lot of money.
Oh, that is true.
Did you guys see the new Cybertruck? Oh my God, Elon was just in the I'm sorry. This is some guy was just like, actually, Teslas sell up to 40% of what Ford did alone, and I'm just like, yes, and their market cap is higher. Don't tell me this tries to make any sense. Shut up.
So they get this whole system of like bids and offers and electricity futures, wholesale and retail prices.
Becomes this is my favorite part, right? Is it imports a fallacy from the original stock market, which is that you are going to be a rational consumer with an equal economic opportunity to like choose the best electrons that come into your house.
Sorry, did you say diamond hands?
Yeah, and if somebody isn't supplying you with the right electrons, you just take your business elsewhere and you find someone who will, and the market will sort that out because it's unprofitable to screw people.
And they got they got their guy Augusto Pinochet to test it out in Chile in the early 1980s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of Pinochet innovations, right? These economic efficiencies that he implemented.
Pinochet innovations is a hell of a phrase, baby boy.
Innovations, yes.
Yeah, we did it.
This sort of eventually makes it back to the United States. Electric grid deregulation, as they call it here, becomes an idea which is popular with certain people who like that sort of thing, right?
Sort of von Mises Institute AEI freaks. Yeah.
So the electric company just selling you electricity directly, you can't do that. When the electricity company sells you electricity directly, that's communism, right?
But if there were a market,
yes.
Yeah. What if instead you bought the right to enter into a bidding process?
Yes.
Where you had an electricity broker, which would still be called an electric company. It would still look like an electric company, but it would compete to buy power as a sort of cartel.
Yes. Well, yeah. So, we had 50 middlemen doing like arbitrage and other bullshit, right? So, for instance, here in Pennsylvania, they deregulated electricity in 1997, right? So I can pay for electricity at my house from 7 or 8 different suppliers, right? And all of that electricity is still delivered by the Philadelphia Electric Company, right?
Woo!
It's all Pico, but I'm paying someone else to buy power from Pico.
Yeah.
And I think,
but the important thing is that person in the middle can then get quite wealthy, and that's capitalism.
I looked this up beforehand. About 6 of the companies I can buy from charge more for power than Pico does. But I among the things I can do, of course, is I can pay slightly more for the same electricity, but it's from a company who says the electricity is renewable, right?
Oh, those fucking people, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it all nuclear anyway?
Yeah, most of the electricity here is nuclear.
Cool.
I shall return.
Okay. But this is sort of an advantageous situation for like a few big electricity consumers, as Fallon said before. Like, if you're an industrial customer, if you're a municipal water system, if you're using a shitload of electricity, you can get some good deals. But not so much the retail customer, right?
Yeah. Just kind of stuck doing whatever. My company charges me a $2.50 meter reading fee, and I feel like I could just read the meter myself and just tell you what I owe you.
I thought they could do it electronically now.
Oh, well.
Yeah, smart meters.
Not in my building, apparently.
Oh, my God. Especially if it's like a whole building, right? You should not have to.
I feel like we should shout
you should
out
get a discount there at least.
A little bit of praxis in the form of electricity and water meter sabotage, of just being like, yeah, no, I have used 0 electricity this month. I swear, just having gotten into the casing of this thing with a drill and just rolled the thing back.
The guy who sells hornet's nest decoys, you can put on your electric meter. So
we should fucking plug that guy instead of whatever self-defense bullshit.
So, lots of places are set up so there's like nominal competition, but this is done on like a huge scale in Texas, right? Oh boy, I switched to a black background and I can't see the legend anymore.
It's the Goth United States.
Yes.
It's Goth North America.
It's true.
This is the society that MySpace would have brought us if it had succeeded instead of Facebook.
We'd all be friends with MySpace Tom. Yeah.
What's up?
So far, we
were just talking about MySpace. You remember MySpace?
No, I don't want to talk about that. Moving on swiftly.
Liam, what was the auto-playing song on your MySpace profile?
Oh, man. Probably I'm Not Okay with My Chemical Romance or something by Taking Back Sunday, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
I didn't have a MySpace.
You were
cool.
Wise man.
Zanga?
I did have a Zanga.
That was very gothy, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. What's the Live Journal, which I never had.
Our Live Journal was pretty goth, too. Anyway, this is the Goth. This is Goth North America.
Goth North America, yes. Okay,
except for Mexico.
Yeah, no Mexico
yeah,
on
that's
here.
True.
Or Central America. That's also part of North America.
We get a bit of Baja California in here, apparently.
There is a little bit of Baja California. That's
fine.
True.
This is Goth United States and Canada,
and a little bit of Baja California,
and a little bit of Baja California.
No jokes here.
Okay, so there's 2 main interconnections in the continuous United States and also Canada. There's the Western interconnection, which is on this side, and then there's the Eastern interconnection, which is on this side. All these colors are the same, except Quebec has some weird thing going on where they're technically interconnected, but also kind of not. Les electrons.
I have special bilingual electrons to power my ski mobile dealership.
I have to have the right of refusal to that filthy, ugly How you say power? Oh,
Guy sniffing the electrons coming into his wires, but it's like, he's Anglo.
I will sit in the dark.
I will flood the nation with my barrage hydroelectric.
Oh, they sure will.
And then there's Texas down here.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. This
Not even
is
all of Texas.
not even all of Texas, no.
Funnily enough, not the bit of Texas with all of the massive oil plants, because those are right by the border with Louisiana. Those are on the Eastern Interconnection because they need to function
they
or
need to
everybody
work,
dies. Yeah.
Texas runs its own interconnection, not for practical reasons, but for political ones, right? Because they want to avoid being federally regulated. They want Texas to regulate the grid.
Great.
We got to keep Ernest Moniz out of our business at any cost.
Yeah, so, Texas can't really export or import power as a result of this, right?
Yep.
It's
just disconnected.
Yeah.
It's got like 2 ties to the Eastern Interconnection that like don't really work, and even if they did, you couldn't like put large amounts of power through them.
I understand there's like some weird system where they got to convert the electricity to DC and then shove it across the border and then convert it back to AC.
Yes, I learned about this. It's like a very, very high voltage DC because at very high voltages, there's less losses at DC. It's just a pain in the butt to like step that back down. Anyway.
Yeah. So this is under control of the Texas Public Utilities Commission, who sets the rates and stuff like that. The grid power dispatch is done by ERCOT, which is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, right?
I thought that was the big dome at Disney World.
Oh, it's Epcot.
Reliability Council seems a little
well,
little premature, maybe.
The Texas Nothing Can Possibly Go Wrong Council.
Okay, so you have regulated utilities, sort of. They generate power, they maintain lines, they disconnect homes, businesses. They sell electricity at wholesale prices and also, to a certain extent, directly to customers at retail prices, right? But then there's 4 or 5 dozen other retail electricity companies, right? They buy power from the utilities at wholesale prices, then resell the electricity at retail prices to consumers, right? And there's some retail electrical companies in Texas who own some infrastructure.
Oh, boy.
But a lot of these retail electricity companies are like 4 guys in an office with some spreadsheets, right?
Yeah, it's like 1 floor of a skyscraper in Houston or Dallas.
Yes.
Tomas and Associates. The Associates is just his dog, but he's trying.
Because of this,
Out of curiosity, what is this power being generated by? Because I know they've got some renewables, some nuclear too, right?
It's about 4. I know nuclear is about 4%. Natural gas is 51%. Wind is surprisingly 24%. And then there's other crap. Almost no hydroelectric, which I thought was interesting. But then Texas is not especially mountainous.
Unlivable hell, yeah.
Yes. The hill country doesn't have any water, so...
Yeah, and the water country doesn't have any hills.
Yes.
I guess they can always do like tidal power maybe in future. Who knows?
That is technically, that's what the Gulf Coast is the water country. Okay, so what's the result of having your own interconnection? Has this ever had any problems? And the answer is yes, in 2011. During the Groundhog Day blizzard in February 2011.
Hi, Phil.
Hello, Phil.
You look so unhappy.
Strange provincial American superstition. If you're not familiar,
I don't want
they find this marsupial named Philip, and they pick him up, and if he sees his shadow, then winter is going to last 6 more weeks.
Yes,
and if he does not see his own shadow, then winter is over. I don't know why they believe this. It's what America has instead of religion.
Well, it's because
wait, groundhogs are marsupials?
I don't know, probably. I think so.
No, they're rodents. Groundhogs
They're
are
actually
rodents.
kind of arachnids.
No, Phil is special.
Phil
he's
is
immortal.
special. Yes. Yes.
They don't choose a new Phil like the Pope. They don't have like a conclave.
No, part of the Groundhog Day ceremony is they give Phil his elixir of immortality. I'm not making that up.
I love our dumb state. Love it.
Phil's predictions are said to be entirely and 100% accurate. It's just that the man who speaks Groundhogese to him sometimes misinterprets what he says.
How can you fuck that up? Phil can only know 3 or 4 words.
I am fucking like, I'm delving back into Reddit atheism over this here. I'm just like, you've just invented a religion here. The exact same principles. I'm just like, no, it is infallible. We just have to have a guy to interpret it, and sometimes he's wrong.
Yeah, but Phil is only infallible about one particular subject, which is the weather.
Well,
He's
so
not
is the
infallible
Pope, more
about
or
everything.
less. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because infallibility has only been invoked like once.
I
think.
Yeah, well, technically anything
Ascension
ex
of
cathedra
Mary.
is infallible, but like it's only infallible with regard to the like doctrinal and moral leadership of the church. So
It's also like a relatively modern thing is the other thing.
Wasn't
also
that
true.
established at Vatican I?
It was before Vatican I.
Yes, but like it was applied retroactively.
Oh, okay, so cheating.
No.
Yeah. Sorry, did you think the one true holy and apostolic Catholic Church is above cheating?
My
Someone
girlfriend is
had to
downstairs
establish
teaching
the
CCD
divinity
to
of
8th
Mary.
graders, so that's fucking funny.
or whatever the hell it was. Whatever.
You did 12 years of Catholic school, man.
Yeah, and I did 12 years forgetting it.
Oh.
Less than 12 years. So, all right, during the 2011 Groundhog Day blizzard, a bunch of non-winterized power plants in Texas shut down because all their turbines were out in the open, right?
Mm-hmm. Because you just build a power plant and you're like, it's Texas. How cold's it going to
It's
get?
probably not going to get that cold, right?
Going to get more worried about it getting hot. You can't really protect against both at the same time in the same way, so you just build everything outside.
It's impossible to cool a building.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, these non-winterized plants shut down. The remaining plants couldn't keep up with demand. There was rolling blackouts implemented over about 3 days. A bunch of places lost power to the extent that their water treatment plants shut down. So there were boil water advisories. Natural gas wellheads froze. That's another fun one. So people didn't have heating. El Paso got, I think, hit the hardest by this one. They had a bunch of water mains break throughout the city. I think in total, 3.2 million customers were affected throughout Texas. But this disaster was one which was pretty bad. But everyone agreed this could have been worse, right? People made it through.
One of those sort of near-miss experiences where everyone's like, man, this is a chilling portent of things to come. We better do something to make sure the bad thing doesn't happen. Did they do any of that?
I was going to say chilling. Because it's cold.
Because it's cold.
Yes.
That's a temperature joke.
Genius.
The feds and North American Electric Reliability Corporation said, all right, here's our recommendation. What you need to do is you need to winterize your damn power plants, right?
This is like, right? That's the thing they did?
No.
Oh.
I love that, like, again, because this is a purely intrastate thing, all the feds can do is recommend that you do this shit.
Right.
Yeah, they can't do anything about it.
And that's the way Texan independence is going to stay. Like, you guys are a state. You pay taxes.
Yeah, they know.
Under protest.
Oh, fuck 'em.
Under protest, yeah.
Yeah, same, but you don't hear me trying to secede.
Now with that attitude.
Thank you, Fallon.
There's a rumor that the reason they keep the electric grid separated is in case they want to secede. I don't think that's true. I think they're just belligerent.
Again, me too, but you're not special, Texas.
Because again, Texas power companies decided not to do this because it would cost money, and winter does not happen in Texas, except in 2011. That's an outlier, though, of course.
Yeah, and the fun thing about outliers is that we're not having more and more of them all the time. We're not having
There
50-year,
is no new
100-year,
normal, thank
500-year weather events every year anymore.
Mhm.
Because that would be absurd if you had those, because that's not what that means.
There was a second recommendation, though, which was to increase the power capacity being fed to the grid of Texas, right? Because it was running on a razor-thin margin. Owing to, I read this in some S&P publication. I think that's Standard and Poor, like their energy division. Texas's grid runs this sort of scarcity pricing model, right?
Oh, just in time, but for electrons.
Oh, good.
Sort of. And it encourages power plant operators to, build based on power scarcity, sort of to the extent that they can't really make money unless the state is constantly on the absolute bleeding edge of grid failure, right?
Jesus Christ.
There's something in there which is like a mathematical assumption that goes into the pricing of a hypothetical ideal natural gas plant, which is the cheapest form of electricity in Texas at the time. So it's like, well, if your plant can't do better than our ideal, assume a natural gas plant which is spherical and of uniform density, right? Can you do better than that? If no, then you are inefficient and will be, you should cut yourself off from the grid, right?
Perfect. Good sign.
Yeah, I had a hard time understanding this.
Well, the thing about markets is that they're a driver of innovation, right? And the way you drive innovation is by requiring the impossible,
Kneecapping
punishing
yourself,
anyone
yes.
who doesn't achieve it,
Yes.
and also just destroying your entire power grid.
Yes.
Innovation through kneecapping. But
Yeah, it means somebody's going to innovate a way out of this, probably.
Oh, absolutely. And, over the next 10 years, lots of innovation occurred. And then almost exactly 10 years later, winter comes back to Texas.
Oh. Funny how that works.
Yeah. This current storm, right, sort of rolled in from the Pacific Northwest on February 13th. That brought in very cold temperatures to everywhere, right? Everywhere has been very cold, right? It sort of drops this ass load of snow on Texas on February 14th and 15th. It's got, bitterly cold everywhere, right? Houston hit 13 degrees Fahrenheit. That's negative 11 Celsius. San Antonio was about the same. Dallas hit negative 2 degrees Fahrenheit. That's negative 19 Celsius, right?
Fuck.
I mean, that's cold. Certainly by my standards, even that's cold. But it's also much colder if you build your entire city for, I don't know, 40 degrees C heat.
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah.
So is that a sheep?
No,
That's
it's
a
my
cat.
cat.
That's
Aw.
Elf. Hi, Elf.
Hello, Elf.
Elf Liam says hi. He was quiet this entire time, and now he decides to make.
Well, now he's much like the cat he is, has decided to be an asshole for no reason.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for calling your cat a sheep.
No, that I am not offended, and
the
cat is not
mortified.
offended.
Yeah, I think he might be offended.
Mm-hmm.
Might have hurt his feelings.
All right, so what happens is everyone in Houston, they live in these paper thin buildings, which we'll talk about in a second. They turn their heaters on, right? And the electrical grid couldn't really handle the load from all this increased heating, while power plants were also freezing solid, right? So all these power plants, which were offline because they weren't doing as well as the spherical natural gas plant of uniform density, they froze up. ERCOT sends out the order, we need to shed the load, right?
Oh boy.
So in order to keep the turbine spinning at 60 hertz, you have to start dropping different power customers to keep it running, or you'll over torque the turbine, and then it'll break, and then it'll be like months before you can get the power plant running.
Obviously, what you do there is you start with the massive office buildings that are all empty because it's nighttime, and also there's a pandemic, and you use that to like keep the lights and heating on in private homes, right?
Wrongo.
No, you don't do that because of reasons.
You got to have a good looking skyline for people to look at.
It's kind of that is an interesting question, because I know like you might cause more property damage by shutting off power to empty office buildings than shutting it off to occupied houses.
Yeah, but at the same time,
so many active systems.
Fuck them. Don't care.
So
like I was too busy looking at the photos
rather than to cause all that property damage, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But like we've all seen the photos of like downtown Dallas and downtown Austin, just entirely lit up and surrounded by darkness.
Yes.
That's a case of one of those contradictions I was talking about earlier.
And they still managed to get some of these big buildings still had major problems. That's later. So they start doing rolling blackouts where you start, the idea is, all right, this one neighborhood, we're going to shut off power for half an hour, maybe an hour. And then we switch to the next one. We shut off power there. But, you're not going to lose power for too long, right? Theoretically. But then some of the time when they turn the power back on in these neighborhoods after they do the rolling blackout, it doesn't come back on.
Why?
I'm not entirely sure. Cold weather does bad things to transformers, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Fallon, do you know?
It could be, without actually knowing what's happening, it could be any number of things. It could be, sometimes like transformers, if you shut them off, you have to start them back up. And when they start back up, they actually draw a lot of current all at once. And that could, if things are not set up properly or it draws too much current, it'll just kind of like pop breakers.
Well, the margins are razor thin anyway.
Well, sorry, what?
I said when the margins they're running on are razor thin anyway.
Yeah, and it could be like a whole, like everything all at once just goes wrong and things just don't start back up. But generally, transformers do initially when they're being turned on do draw a lot of current. And if a lot of transformers start up all at once, they do draw a lot of current all at once, as opposed to just if they just kept running.
And a lot of these neighborhoods that tended to not come back on were the ones with the oldest and shittiest infrastructure. So I guess that would make sense that, that's where, I don't know, you'd have a transformer pop or something.
Yeah, especially if it's just trying to, the fuses inside is just trying to protect itself, or, something down the line, upstream that fuse pops, and, that ends up taking out a whole neighborhood, or they can't get it back on.
What?
Hi, Al.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
This is fine.
We'll add Elf on as a contributor to the podcast.
They put up with me every week, Fallon. You're doing terrific.
So, one of the interesting things, though, is that ERCOT, they're in charge of the rolling blackouts in Texas. The whole Southeast is affected by this, and there are much fewer where they do have to institute rolling blackouts in like places like Arkansas, Louisiana, stuff like that, right? But the most of those neighborhoods, the power comes back on, as opposed to Texas, where
does not. Yeah.
And there's definitely an economic disparity in neighborhoods with good infrastructure are a lot more they get their power back on quickly, and other people not so much. So a lot of people lost power for 3 days or more, right? And this resulted in sort of cascading failures of infrastructure, right? With low temperatures everywhere and no heating, no electricity, water, sewage, natural gas starts failing, right? No one can get food into supermarkets. They sell out of like food and water. Water treatment plants fail, so you got boil water advisories everywhere, right? No one had prepared at all for this sort of thing to happen.
No, apart from the handful of deranged Texan preppers who thought Antifa was going to do it to them.
I don't know that you would do very well in your stupid unheated bunker that you built in your backyard out of like school buses buried or something.
I've got this water filtration straw, and it's going to carry me through 3 days of this bullshit.
Well, thank God it's only going to be 3 days. Certainly, the boys would never let it go longer than that. It's taken 3 weeks.
It's it's clearly the Antifa weather machine doing this.
No, it's the juice, and you're welcome.
Prepping is so funny to me, though, in such a grim way, right? Because it's people who have correctly identified that like a lot of the systems that they depend on are incredibly fragile and also being run down, and then want to like divorce themselves from it to ensure their own survival because they can't face the possibility that like, you just can't do that. Like if the stuff collapses, your like ability to do stuff on your own is very, very minimal. And you're just you're kind of fucked. The pressure here is in prevention rather than cure. But Antifa are going to come to your house and take your guns.
And I've talked to some not like preppers, but they sell like off-grid battery packs and off-grid like that sort of stuff, and they're not very good.
I'm gonna keep a giant like fire hazard in my house all the time, as a hedge against this happening. And then when it does happen, either it will have already frozen over first, or I will maybe get like a day's use out of it, and then it will also collapse.
It's honestly just like very heavy, and it's kind of hard to get started. Or I'm just thinking of a specific company in mind. Don't mind me.
Some of this stuff, like this is the really like sad thing about prepping, right? Is that like all of the stuff that you're trying to replicate, unless you're seriously getting into like I'm gonna grow my own crops and stuff. It's so much more easily done at a like centralized community level that you have to have some kind of community to do that. You're not going to be able to do this on your own, man. You can't build your own power plant. You can't do this stuff.
Welcome to Gun Dick Preppers. This is our backpack lead acid battery system.
Now, let's say hypothetically AOC comes to your state and she shuts down your power grid for doing transmisogyny.
Devious sex reasons, yes.
Yeah. What you're going to do is you're going to hook up this tactical power pack and you're going to get pedaling.
Yeah, but what you have is you have your lead acid battery. It powers it powers something that I don't know makes gasoline out of the air to run your motorcycle, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's just a scam for the most part. Like, okay, fine. If you want to keep some like emergency food and water in your house, good, probably for the best. If you want to keep a first aid kit and a fire extinguisher, that's probably smart. But like, so much of this stuff but so much more of this stuff is just like marketing to sell people shit that they don't need, and when they do need it, they won't be able to use.
I don't recommend purchasing food in a bucket, for instance.
No.
Oh, the baker bucket. Yeah. Classic. If you don't get raptured, you have to survive on this bucket.
So
I'd rather just get raptured, or whatever the opposite of rapture. I don't care. If I'm
after
to
we finish
that point,
recording
just
this,
put me down.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid response, right? Like my sort of shit hits the fan prepping view is, yeah, no, if it gets that bad, I'm gonna fucking die anyway, man. I don't need to I don't need to rob myself now to pay off against this thing that, if it happens, is gonna be fucking terrible. I don't.
It's like I guess
that.
I don't have whatever the unbreakable will of the human spirit or whatever, but fuck it. Just
no,
throw me in the trash.
I'm a level 1 NPC. I die early in some like environmental storytelling shit. I'm gonna scroll something meaningful on the wall, drop a bunch of items, and then I'm fucking gone, man.
You're
I'm
one
not
of the people
gonna be
from Left 4 Dead 2. I understand.
yeah, exactly. Don't dead, open inside. And I'm gonna do that instead of trying to like grow my own fucking beans.
My prepper plan is to just get on a bike and go into the woods.
Grab the SKS.
Yeah.
How your people survived for thousands of years, Fallon.
All
We
right.
never had bikes for thousands of years.
Shut up. What? I don't know what I'm implying that her mom did in the step, but I respect and fear your mother.
It's the weirdest kind of racial stereotype.
What did my mother do in the step?
The steppe peoples and their bicycling.
Yes. Hey man, the horses are slow. Bikes are fast.
You know what steppes have a lot of famously?
It's trees.
I'm not the one who said that I wanted to go into the woods. Aha. Just lay me down to die.
The Mongol Empire stretched to its full expanse because they were looking for woods to go in.
And we can't get the yak through this shit.
Put it on wheels, baby.
What is a bicycle but a yak on wheels?
Good lord!
All right,
the delirium has set in.
Yes,
that's right.
Early
the podcast madness.
Well, the good news is I don't have to go to the bathroom because I am sweating so badly because they put my heat on and now it's too good.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about what could have been done and what was actually done.
Train.
This is train, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the main things they could have done to avert this situation where there's no power in Texas, and it's freezing cold. One of the things they could have done is any kind of planning at all.
No.
It sounds a little like your Monday morning quarterbacking, this, Justin.
Yes.
Like, it's very easy to say, oh, you should have done this when you got a very obvious warning that this was going to happen in 2011 and you had 10 years to do something about it. But on the other hand, once it's already happening, what are you going to do? Retroactively plan your way out of it?
Well, this is an interesting one because there were not even like reactive measures taken to a large extent, right? So I thought this is a sort of an interesting counterexample, right? In 1988, there was a major ice storm in Montreal, right?
Montreal.
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 Oui.
Have to be on Yonge Street in Montreal.
Wrong city. Yonge Street's in Toronto.
I don't care.
Okay. Okay.
Take the Spadina bus, yes.
I love to go to see an Oilers game in
Fuck you, Alice. I will break your legs as soon as I get the passport cleared.
Climb the CN Tower, which I believe to be.
I believe that one is in Halifax.
I wish I was in Sherbrooke now.
Yes. So this town called Boucherville is a suburb of Montreal, right? And in 1998, after a major ice storm, there's a total blackout for like a long time. I don't recall what it was offhand because I didn't put it in the notes. One of the things the city government did is they borrowed a locomotive from Canadian National, right? A diesel electric locomotive, right? Which, of course, is a big diesel engine attached to a big electric generator that generates power and sends it to the electric motors in the wheels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What they did was they brought it to a railroad crossing. They derailed it, right? And then they drove it down the street under its own power. not on tracks or anything.
Love it.
And then they hooked up the town's electrical mains to it. And suddenly Boucherville had power, right?
Dudes rock. I mean, this is up there with the sort of like Fallout concept art where you're like, yeah, no, we'll run the city off of the like beached nuclear submarine reactor or something. It's very cool.
This was very bad for the street, but very good for keeping the lights on. Because it just sort of created two grooves down the street the whole way.
Now it's a train track.
Do you have how long they did it for? Because I can't imagine it was more than a few hours.
I am not sure. I mean, these big fuel tanks will last for a day. I can't imagine it was throttled up the whole way the whole time. I don't know what the horsepower.
We just left this thing on notch 8, just
we'll
like
just leave it there on
grinding
notch
down
8.
the street at 1 mile an hour.
Circling Boucherville just very slowly.
I mean,
they couldn't run it all the way down. They had to get it back to the rail, right?
Oh, well, that's what the grooves in the street are for.
Yeah, just push it back. Just hook up a yak on wheels.
You could. I think this is about a 3,000 horsepower locomotive. So, I have no idea how long they ran it for. But one thing I thought was noteworthy is, especially railroads in Texas, like Union Pacific and Burlington Northern Santa Fe, have a massive motive power surplus right now. There's just like lines of locomotives, just lined up, unused everywhere. I don't know. This is like something they could have done.
Right, it chose not to.
They have not done
it's
that
willful.
yet.
Of course it is.
I assume if the power was being restored fairly quickly, maybe folks decided, all right, maybe we don't need all this backup generation. But what actually happened, so it was, maybe it's not worth it to do extreme measures like this. But what really was sort of the immediate aftermath of this snowstorm was Ted Cruz flew to Cancun.
Yeah.
Right.
You sure did.
Biden declared an emergency and then didn't really do anything after that.
He said he would come to Texas if it didn't create additional disruption to the folks on the ground.
Okay.
Fine, because like having, I guess the idea was like having the Secret Service fly in would like and do the whole advance party thing would like disrupt stuff. And like bear in mind the contrast here to Trump of being like, yeah, I'll fly to Puerto Rico and I'll do layups with things of toilet roll.
Let me throw some toilet paper into the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. Just Kobe, woof, just out into the crowd.
The George W. Bush Katrina flyover.
Fuck yeah! No, I guess there is no right answer here. Like, if you try and get down on the ground and mix it up, you're Donald Trump. If you try and go but not get down on the ground, you're George Bush. And if you don't go, you're Joe Biden. So
yeah, I mean, there's no good. This is a real Kobayashi Maru of disaster response right here. They sent FEMA in. They brought a whopping 60 generators for the whole state.
Yeah, makes sense.
But how big were they? Size matters.
I have no idea. I mean, if they fit on a truck, I assume it's not that big.
Unlike my dog, which does not fit on a truck.
Just kidding. You have to have a train to haul around your dog.
That's right. The train is phallic, and so is Liam, baby.
And then AOC did a fundraiser with Beto O'Rourke.
I remember him.
Yeah, I remember one of those sort of generic.
They grow him in a lab.
He's the guy who he's the guy who tried to take over Venezuela, right?
I think so. Yeah,
I think so.
The rightful president of Venezuela, Beto O'Rourke.
A sort of not a great federal response on the whole. I gotta say, it's been kind of like it seems like the people of Texas are kind of on their own.
Man, don't they just know it? I mean, like, it seemed like the only thing that might have actually hurt Ted Cruz's popularity was like him fucking going to Cancun and then coming back and being like, yeah, no, actually, I meant to just do that. I was just flying down to like because of my daughters.
These bitches,
my
you know,
11-year-old daughters wanted to go to Cancun, so I just flew them down.
The leaked group chat texts were some of the funniest things I've ever seen, though.
My favorite fucking joke about this was that Ted Cruz, the thing to know about me, Ted Cruz, is I may not step in to defend my wife, but I will also not do that for my daughters.
Let me throw my daughters under the bus in front of the press and everyone.
In front of the generating train that we have run down this street.
You know what was fucking annoying was like there was definitely some like media folks trying to say, you know, Ted Cruz really sounded like a dad right then. You know, right? He's a real
he's just an
dadly
asshole
type person. And I'm like, he's throwing his daughters in front of under the bus in front of the press and everyone, like everywhere. Like what the hell?
No, guy's just an asshole.
He's an asshole. Yeah, he's an asshole dad. His daughters are going to be traumatized. I hope they become TikTok celebrities, you know, screaming about Ted Cruz and how he's the worst person imaginable.
Roz, we got to get you on TikTok. I want to see you lumber your way through some of these dances, bud.
I am not going to do that.
You wanted us to have a TikTok so we could post Polish stuff.
Welcome to @Justin for Congress.
Yeah, but then they can't ban you because you're a political candidate.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm the real.
It's genius.
I am the real proletariat. That's the podcaster.
Well, now you got to do it.
Mm-hmm. So this is where we have to talk about the wholesale electricity market. So as I mentioned, there's the scarcity pricing system involving the spherical natural gas plant, right? Determine what actual prices should be and incentivize power station operators to increase and decrease capacity, right? And during this horrible emergency, the market on its own stabilized electricity wholesale prices around a whopping $1,200 per megawatt hour, right?
Jesus fuck.
That's very expensive.
It's very, very, very expensive. Yes, sort of like if you're using 1 megawatt.
I just got my electricity bill in the mail, and it's 7 cents a kilowatt hour, and I used 1,000 of those. So instead of multiplying by 12 cents, you're multiplying by, what did you say, $1,200?
$1,200, yes.
Yeah, that. 7 cents.
So this has just wiped out a bunch of people's savings and stuff.
I paid like a $16,000 electricity bill. That was all his money. And
yeah, because like, you're very quiet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're not talking into the microphone. Yeah. Also, a bunch of people had their stuff set up to auto pay, so they just woke up one morning to find that their energy company had deducted them $16,000 or whatever for a couple of days.
But you don't have enough faith in markets, is the thing. Now,
not really.
That's true.
No.
Okay, so $1,200 a megawatt hour, right? Which is again, the other thing is the previous week it had traded about $30 a megawatt hour, right? The Texas Public Utilities Commission looked at these prices and said, this does not seem to indicate a rational market considering how scarce electricity is right now, right? And they ordered ERCOT to charge $9,000 a kilowatt hour, the legal maximum, on February 15th.
I mean, that's a responsible intervention, right? Yeah, we can only limit you to...
Like there's not enough scarcity in the market. Did I say kilowatt hour? I meant megawatt hour. So
it's probably the same thing.
The quote was, according to that same S&P article I looked at before, at various times today, February 15th, energy prices across the system have been as low as approximately $1,200 per megawatt hour, the order states. The commission believes this outcome is inconsistent with the fundamental design of the ERCOT market. Energy prices
Mhm.
should reflect scarcity of the supply. If customer load is being shed, scarcity is at its absolute maximum, and the market price for the energy needed to serve that load should also be at its highest.
We gotta make the markets. This thing that we believed we implemented as a natural law in order to not do regulation. We are having to regulate it to make it behave in the awful way we think it should behave.
Well, I guess the logic here is that if the prices are that high, then, of course, power generators, people who will be incentivized to bring their power plants online more quickly, right?
Sure.
If you just threw enough money at the problem, the ice would disappear from the turbines, right?
Mm-hmm.
The power grids, all the transformers would be replaced instantly where they had popped, right? Markets are infallible. It is reality, which is often wrong.
We have to dissolve the markets and elect another one.
So they reversed this order on the 16th. They realized even these people were like, oh, no, this is really stupid. But prices didn't drop.
Oh, no. Who could have predicted that?
Oh, my goodness.
They sat at the legal maximum for 4 days.
At that point, you don't even want to turn your electricity back on.
Yeah, because it's like now the switch in your home that like simultaneously stops you freezing to death, which people did, and also then if you hit it, bankrupts you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I either get bankrupted from my electricity bill or I get bankrupted from hypothermia treatment, right?
Yeah, and you're just sitting there thinking about Ted Cruz in Cancun and feeling very normal.
Yes, and that vein right next to your eye is not throbbing, or is a
That's
giant
right.
vein in your forehead, and you're having a normal one, and you're not thinking of all the redacted things you could do to Ted Cruz, redacted
Nope.
in front of his own redacted. Jesus Christ.
So now
You're just having a nice time.
these are wholesale prices, right? This is not retail prices. So most retail customers were fine because either the retail electricity suppliers were either like, all right, we're going to eat the loss. We're going to work this out in litigation later, right? That's one option. Another option, of course, is, they don't have enough time to change rates. But there were a couple of Texas electricity retail companies which acted as sort of this clever way where retail customers could buy electricity at the wholesale price. And they would just pass that directly on, right?
The savings go directly to you, the consumer.
Yes. One of those companies was called Gritty.
Oh.
Yes.
Look how they killed my boy.
Gritty with like 2 Ds?
Yes.
I
see.
So,
I'm irrationally angry.
Gritty.
I'll show you the irrational anger market.
So Gritty, they pass these costs directly on to the consumers, right? So $9,000 a megawatt hour. This is where I did the comparison. That's $9 a kilowatt hour. Or if you run a 100 watt bulb for 12 hours, that's going to cost you $108.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So folks,
Truly the ideal system, yes.
not very good because you might be using, I don't know, a couple kilowatts a day, right? Or more than a couple kilowatts a day.
Yeah.
Some people's computers, are like kilowatt computers. I mean,
You're welcome.
or like an oven or like a microwave or something. It's drawing a lot of power.
I'm gaming.
Yeah, this is a
I gotta have this. I gotta have the mini fridge to keep the Monster
critical.
Energy cool.
Yes.
These are absolutely
mission critical.
Yeah,
She's
non-negotiable.
Right. Yes. Thank you for backing me up, Alice.
That's right.
And as Alice said before, if you were on auto pay, you got screwed.
Oh yeah.
Gritty actually told its customers, "Listen, switch now." they sent out an alert like, oh, "Get away, get away." This is not going to be good for you.
You gotta go.
Oh,
but
God.
some people didn't. Some people weren't able to, and so
Give me 1 second. I gotta go. I gotta get some more water. Actually, I'm sweating.
Wow, it's the opposite of what normally happens.
They actually do the load shedding pretty often. Like I used to work for an energy management system as like in a call center, and we would get calls from a certain craft store, and they'd be like, "Oh, all of our lights just shut off. What happened?" And we're like, "Oh, load demand."
That's what happens.
Yeah, well, it was a load demand thing. You know, they were calling us because they thought that we turned the lights off, and it's like, no, your utility company did that because it's 100 degrees in the summer, and this is Miami, Florida. So, just thought I'd fill in
just
the
a
void.
bunch of window air conditioning units all going
All
full
at
blast at
yes,
once.
and then wondering why the power's not working. Well,
everything's going so well with climate change. How are we all feeling about that?
Normal.
Are we
Very
incredibly depressed and anxious, or
nah,
are we
normal. Everything's going to be fine. I'm sure the politicians will take care of it.
fucking Bill Gates is going to fix it by seeding CaCO3 into the atmosphere to dim
tasty.
Earth's yellow sun.
Daddy Musk. Daddy
Stop
Musk will
Daddy
save
Musk
us
is
all.
gonna do it.
Stop it.
It's going to take us to
No.
Mars.
He's going to take us to Mars, to the moon. Diamond hands.
Diamond hands, baby. Diamond hands.
But Alice, the way you feel about preppers, where you're like, I'll just be the level 1 NPC. That's how I feel about climate change. Like, I do not want to starve to death. Someone put a bullet in my brain before then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just the sort of guess I'll die vibe.
But as painlessly as possible. Like, I don't want to be stuck in my house, trying to defend it from a marauding band of Mad Mex kind of scavengers looking for the last Pop-Tart or whatever. I want to...
Did you say Mad Mex?
Mad Max?
I thought you
Sorry,
said Mad Mex, like the bar, yeah.
Is my
I've
Russian
been in
accent
Mad
getting
Mex.
to you?
Mid mix.
To Mad Mex. R.I.P. Mad Mex. I know there were rats running around on the floor. The drinks were cheap. I didn't care.
Mad Max is a lot like Mad Max when you've had a few,
especially on a fucking Friday. Jesus Christ!
I missed the 12-ounce margaritas that were somehow cheaper than getting.
Yeah, if you got 2 of those, they was cheaper than the 22-ounce. Listen, I'm just responding to a price gap in the market, man.
You're doing margarita arbitrage.
Yes.
All right, so this leads us to an interesting situation where we have to ask, what happens to buildings when building systems shut down?
Oh, is it good? It's good. It's good, isn't it? I believe this is good.
No, actually, it's not.
Fuck. Shit.
Damn.
So there's lots of images coming out of this particular weather event of catastrophic building system failures, right? So you have pipes burst, they start flooding rooms, like this lobby. I don't know where this is. Or this parking garage where someone's car has become encased in ice.
That living room looks uncomfortably like a sort of gentrified Grover house.
No, it's a lobby. Big glass doors here. It does look like Grover House, but as we discussed in the 501 episode, all buildings are Grover House now. And then some buildings caught fire. No one could fight the fires because the high pressure systems were frozen.
Yep, firefighters stood watching people's houses burn, just being like, what do you want me to do here?
Not much I can do here. Yeah, well, a lot of them had to bring in pumper trucks and tanker trucks full of water rather than use the hydrants that were there because they were frozen.
Christ.
Awesome.
You had a couple cases of children just dying in their beds from hypothermia. I believe the main one that was in the news, that was in a trailer, I think, or a mobile home. Particularly lightly built structure. You got people trying to warm up in their cars, in their garage, and getting carbon monoxide poisoning, right? and you have all these building systems sort of just collapsing from 3 days without power, right? And it's kind of like, what is happening here? Why are these buildings going to shit so quickly, right? I was inspired to write this section because I lost heating for about the 3 previous days. They just restored it this morning, so now I'm getting old-fashioned radiator heat. And they restored it a little too well, so I have my window open, and I'm wearing shorts and a T-shirt, and I'm just getting full frontal radiator assault. But my building is not burned down, right? And this is, an old-ass Victorian house with basically no insulation and drafty windows. And, it's ice and snow outside. You got to ask, what is going on here? Why do some buildings just collapse into shit and others do not, right? And part of this is luck of the draw. One of the things we notice in Houston, San Antonio, places like this, it's mostly new buildings falling apart, and that's because it's mostly new buildings in those places, right? But there's some other reasons why some buildings work well and others do not. Under a sort of massive failure of society to provide water, electricity, natural gas. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about passive climate control and thermal mass.
Why would you think that was fun?
What?
This is just what he likes.
This is what I like. I like buildings.
I know.
I like buildings. Buildings are what I like. I'm going loopy from heat.
That's fair. It's okay.
I
support you.
Absolutely deranged from heat stroke, just telling us about buildings.
Yes. Going from hypothermia directly to heat stroke, yes.
Yeah. That's just efficiency, baby.
Okay, so I understand this. We need to go to New Orleans.
Greatest town.
Nolans. All right, we're in the French Quarter, right? Get your
many ways, we are asking where yat.
Get your daiquiris out. We're in the French Quarter. So in 1788, the French Quarter burned down, right? And then it was completely rebuilt in brick at the height of the Little Ice Age, right?
Oh, wait, fuck, that's literally true. Yes. I thought you were joking.
No, that is the middle of the Little Ice Age is when most of New Orleans, the French Quarter, was built.
The history of New Orleans in geological time is fucking with me so badly.
Yes. And so for most of human history, you could artificially heat a house or a building. You couldn't really artificially cool it down. Insulation was basically non-existent, right? There's corn cobs, horsehair, rice hulls, and the Romans and Greeks figured out how to use asbestos, but there's not like high efficiency window glazing. There's not window glazing at all. You need other ways to heat and cool houses, right? One of the very old methods was thermal mass, right? Your heat is stored in the structure of your building, right? So your classic example is the fireplace in the chimney, right? You build a fire during the day in your chimney. It heats up the bricks or stone in the chimney. The chimney radiates heat all night, so you can sleep without having to tend a fire. And additionally, through some clever construction techniques and some knowledge of the location of the sun, you can use this to your advantage in both the summer and the winter, right? So, New Orleans in the 1790s, for instance, it's still very hot and humid summers, but also bitterly cold winters, right? You have heating, right? You don't have air conditioning. And so you need all the help you can get staying cool in the summer. So if you manipulate the sunlight striking the thermal mass of the building, you can help yourself stay both warm and cool, right? In New Orleans, they did this through wrought iron balconies, right? Sort of shades the houses from the sun in the summer, right? When the sun is high in the sky. But in the winter, the sun is low in the sky. It goes through the balcony. It heats the thermal mass of the building, right?
Yes.
And then you can have additional like brick walls inside the building, right? That helps heat it up in the winter. And of course, you also have stuff like fireplaces that keeps it warm in the winter. And you have things like big, heavy wooden shutters, right? And these keep the light out in the summer, but they let the breeze in. You can sort of open and close them strategically to heat the parts of the building that need to be heated and cool the other parts. It doesn't work as well as air conditioning, obviously, but it worked enough.
Yeah, it's well adapted to a sort of very hot, very humid climate.
This is very, very, very old method of keeping building temperatures regulated, right? You have Pueblo Bonito here in New Mexico. This is the home of the ancestral Puebloans, as they call them. They're sort of a very, very, very old Native American tribe, which exists from 850 to 1150 AD. This is sort of they had this sort of roof hatches in the houses, ventilated the desert heat in the day. They could close it during the night, and the stone walls radiate the heat. Sort of the same concept also works in Machu Picchu. The sun hits the stone walls, radiates the heat. Roman insulae, also very heavily built, also with the shutters you could open and close. Sometimes, again, these had asbestos insulation, right? But not so often. It wasn't like the primary method of heating or cooling the building. Even like England, these big Tudor buildings, it's a lot of thermal mass. Yemen uses this is Shibem and Yemen. We've talked about that before. It sort of uses the same sort of roof hatch system, but also it has windows on the sides. The Great Mosque of Djen in Mali, right?
With very cooling interior corridors.
Yes.
I love this building. They have to reclad it in fresh mud every year.
It's interesting. I was doing research on this. Apparently, the bulk of the structure now, the design on it may have dated from the French colonial period. No one's actually sure because there's not many photographs of the original structure, obviously, because it was built long before photography existed, right? So, thermal mass is a good way to heat and cool, a good way to keep your building's temperature, solid or consistent almost anywhere except, areas which are consistently very hot and humid. Not so good. If you're very close to the equator, it's not going to help you too much. And then we get to this period called the Industrial Revolution, right?
Which again has been a disaster for the human race and its consequence. All right,
that's what I'm about to get into.
I fucked that up. I'm very hungry. I'm sorry.
It's been a disaster and its consequence for the human consequence.
Races. I don't know.
So the way we build buildings changes due to technological innovations, right? One of which...
I have heard that.
Yes. One of which is residential central heating, right? So you have radiators, which are currently making me sweat my balls off, even though my window is wide open right in front of me. You have early forced air systems by the late 1800s. This is the Mark Twain house in Hartford, Connecticut. One of the very first forced air systems was put in this house.
I should say first automated forced air systems because due to the Raj in India, we did invent making a guy fan your house all day.
Oh, right. Yeah, that is one option.
No.
Also,
yeah, you can do that.
Especially you, hedonism bot.
Mark Twain's forced air system did not work as well as the man with the fan, it turns out.
Oh.
Then you had air conditioning shortly afterwards. Primitive refrigeration had been enabled for a long time by shipping ice long distances packed in straw. That gag from The Simpsons where the Arctic expedition refills the ice machine at the Quickie Mart. That was a real thing.
Cool.
Willis Carrier invented mechanical air conditioning in 1906, which was used to cool and dehumidify, I believe, textile mills. Quickly finds its way into movie theaters. other public spaces. It was first installed in an office building in 1928 in San Antonio. I seem to have copied over what it's named in the notes, but it's this one right here. Residential air conditioning came around by the late 40s. Full central HVAC systems were common by the early 60s, right?
Thank God.
So this is sort of coincides with, modernism as a concept, right? Not the architectural movement, but sort of a cultural phenomenon of putting faith into technology to solve our problems. It's something that modernism makes architectural modernism possible, not the other way around, right? You have unlimited cheap energy, and technology are going to remake the world, which results in a sort of rapid change in how we build, right? So, sort of before, characteristics of your building are determined by various, by its location and the climate. And then after, the characteristics of the building is determined by one climate, which is the climate-controlled climate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you build these sort of identical little boxes everywhere, and you have tract housing, which is cool.
Yes, exactly. And you sort of switch from buildings with a lot of thermal mass to buildings that are very thinly built and have a lot of insulation, or maybe not have a lot of insulation, right? And you sort of you make this you make up for this with really big and energy intensive HVAC systems, right? And you have other technology involved here: electric lighting, balloon framing, mass electrification in the automobile. You can do things like the suburbs. Everyone can have their own little detached house, right? You have lawns, you have picket fences, you have segregation.
Inseparable, these things.
It is. Levittown.
I wasn't joking.
No,
yeah.
really.
And, houses start to lose some of their previous practical features like front porches and fireplaces, real shutters. You still have decorative shutters, right? You don't have heavy construction anymore. You don't have your dense development where you can walk to get most of your stuff. And instead they, start to have light wooden construction. They have central air. They have fake decorative porches. They have big lawns and garages, right? And this process starts earlier than modernist architecture, right? I feel like the first examples of this are the sort of American craftsman houses being built lightly and cheaply in California with sort of central heating.
Yeah, but Californians get really defensive about those.
Oh yeah, my craftsman house is the most historic house in the world, and that's why there can't be an apartment building 5 blocks over.
Yeah, despite the fact that this was built in 1910 and came out of a catalog. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I live in an old Victorian. Even this shows some signs of, the sort of switch to central heating, right? There are fireplaces in here. They've been covered over by, drywall.
Fuckers.
It was clearly plumbed for radiators fairly early on in its life. I think this is built between 1895 and 1910. Your fireplace turns from a practical means to heat the house to a place, sort of the family gathers there and listens to FDR on the radio or whatever. I don't know. Maybe Orson Welles is narrating the takeover of New Jersey by aliens. And systems that replace these heating systems, they save a lot of manual labor, but they're very energy intensive. If you've ever seen the electric bill for like a 3-story row house, it's not good.
Ooh, boy, have I seen those.
By the 50s and 60s, the ticky-tacky boxes of Levittown, they're popular, they're ubiquitous. From there, they get bigger and bigger. They sort of morph into McMansions, right?
Yeah, you start getting lawyer foyers. You start getting weird turrets. Start getting uneven roof lines.
Windows where there shouldn't be windows.
Yes.
Windows just
Windows
grabbed
that don't match.
Windows just bagged out of an architectural salvage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Little tiny shutters next to a window that's 9 feet wide. It's very prominent, of course, in the suburbs of Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Texas in general, because this is all these were all built up fairly recently, right? And so you have these very energy intensive houses being confronted with no energy, right? And this is one of the things I did mention. We switch sort of from thermal mass to insulation. These are technologies which complement each other, right? This is not like thermal mass good, insulation bad. You can make them work together. Here's a good example. These are the Goldsmith Street estates in Nottinghamshire, right? This is sort of, is it Nottinghamshire?
Nottinghamshire.
Nottinghamshire. Okay. These are sort of designed with what's called passive solar design. Heats the house with sunlight in the winter, shades some of the windows in the summer. You use sort of modern astronomy and math to do roof angles, right? So you can sort of see, these roof angles mean that in the winter when there's low sun, it heats the houses behind it, but in the summer, most of that, or no, hold on. I use it's hard to see the roof slopes where I understand this works because they're down here. You get the point I'm going for, right?
Sure. You shape the roof in such a way that it does the thing. It does the smart thing.
Yes, exactly.
You have a smart house instead of like a McMansion, which is not a smart house.
Yeah,
it's an aggressively dumb house.
But they also use thermal mass in the bricks on the exterior. They use a lot of insulation on the interior. They have very efficient windows, means energy bills are very low year round. You also got very nice materials on these guys. Also, this is council housing. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Some of the very, very small amounts of council housing being built in Britain today. This stuff is though kind of the exception for new construction and not the rule, right?
Because it's good.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And another thing that's very popular in Europe right now is EIFS. That's this guy right here. Your exterior insulation and finish system. We sort of talked about it in the 5/1 episode. You cover your masonry building in plastic, and it makes it more thermally efficient and also makes it look like it's made of Lego, right?
And also makes it burn down.
It does make it, some of it makes it burn down.
Yeah, but then when that happens, you don't have a cold problem anymore.
This is true, yes. It's very popular in Europe where, people put this on stone buildings and, or I saw one in Prague a while back. There's this building with beautiful plasterwork all over it, rich, fine detail, right? And they tore all of it off and they put EIFS on it. And it was kind of like, this does not seem correct to me. maybe
no, it's modern. We love to be modern, don't we?
I know, right? And one of the things about this is, all right, it makes it more thermally efficient. It's also, I don't recommend systems that make it unable for brick to breathe, right? I get the feeling that if you do this on a masonry building, in 10 or 15 years, if it's not done exactly right, you're not going to be living in a brick building anymore. You're going to be living in a moist clay building.
And then you're going to have to replaster it every year.
Yeah. Well,
just get the French to do it for you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's sort of traditional building systems there that evolved into modern building systems. How has this happened? What has this done in Texas?
Oh boy.
Yeah, 3 days without building systems has wreaked havoc, right? You have this sort of modern, very thermally inefficient construction that relies entirely on constant and interruptible power, water, and gas to keep working properly. Any long-term outage just destroys the building, right? And two of the buildings I'm showing here, these are two different multifamily buildings in San Diego. This one down here in the lower right was actually burned down by people trying to use their fireplace to heat their apartment.
Oh boy.
Which is, since
that's
it's
sad.
It's since it's a modern building, there's not any thermal mass that the
this is a
fireplace
decorative
heats.
fireplace only.
It actually will create a draft in your house and make it colder.
Cool.
Yeah. So, this is, and I'm sure if there was no gas, someone's like, well, the fireplace is a fireplace. Let me throw some firewood in there. No, turns out that doesn't work. But, so you got no thermal mass in these buildings. You got very light construction. The insulation is not fantastic, right? It means the places cool down to ambient temperatures very quickly. Your pipes burst. So, and then, the water that isn't frozen starts coming out of the pipes. And of course, we sort of talked about what water damage does to wood frame buildings in the 5/1 episode. I would imagine a lot of these buildings are going to wind up having to be pulled down, even if they haven't caught fire. And multifamily buildings are what made the news here, right? But I think the damage is going to be a lot worse to single family houses, right? So your modern single family house, this is all the problems we talked about in the 5/1 episodes are 20 or to 25 times worse, I would say, than in a multifamily house. I mean, these buildings, it cannot be overstated. They are shit. They are crap. All of them are terrible.
Is this going to be like how long is the tail of this fucking storm going to be, right? Like, it's going to be years in the making, just fucking demolishing and rebuilding stuff alone, right?
Yeah, it's going to take a long time to recover from this. Yeah. Because you're looking at a huge proportion of the building stock in Texas just being unusable, right? And it's frightening to think just how quickly the built environment that we have constructed in the past, let's say 50 years, just completely collapses if there's some lapse in electrical power. Well, there's also some unfavorable weather conditions, right?
Well, like, obviously the thing to do here is the liberal take, which is all of these people deserved it for voting Republican, which I'm absolutely sure every single one of them did. Not going to be investigating it further, turning off notifications, and just sort of letting that one play out for the next 3 to 5 days in the mentions.
Ah, yes. ATAB, all Texans are bastards. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. If you live in a state that like has been gerrymandered enough to elect Republicans reliably, unfortunately you have been dusted with the complicity juice from that, and that makes a lot of liberals be like, yeah, no, actually everything bad that happens to you, you deserve. This is cool.
This is all directly, every single person in Texas is Ted Cruz, as it turns out.
That's right. It's like being John Malkovich down there.
Yeah, it's I don't know. This is kind of one of the frightening things about, like, just I reread over the weekend a short story. I forget the author. It's from 1909 called "The Machine Stops." Right. And it's about, like, humanity in the far future has created this sort of ideal state of living, right? Everyone lives in this giant machine in, like, identical hexagonal rooms. Their every need is provided for. They all communicate with each other via some kind of video telephone, which I don't know how that's impossible.
Sounds like an
obviously.
episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Ian Forster, Roz.
And then there's this one day, they start to grow to worship the machine. And, there's sort of a small group of elites who control it. But this group of elites doesn't understand how to control it anymore. And one day they get the horrible, one day things start to stop working, right? And they get the news that the part of the machine that repairs the other parts of the machine had broken. And everyone's like, oh, well, whatever, we'll learn to deal with it, right? Well, I'm sure they'll get it back online. And then one day the whole thing just fucking collapses, right? Everyone dies because they've never left their rooms before. They don't know how to get out. And I'm kind of like,
this feels like a metaphor, but I'm choosing not to interpret
I'm
it.
not reading too deeply into this obvious thing.
It's
that's
just a fun story about a bunch of people who live in a wacky scenario that bears no
could never
resemblance
possibly
to
happen to us.
What
it was not
did
made
people
into
know
a
in
wildly
1909?
popular Netflix show. God damn it!
Yeah, that's right.
And I was thinking about this, and I was kind of like, this feels a lot like this sort of thing where like certain services are not provided for a certain period of time, and everything just goes to shit. There's no. It's incredible that a building or a house, right? Safest houses is an expression over in England, if I'm not mistaken.
What is it?
Sure.
That just
Safest houses.
because there's no electricity and no heat for a couple days, it catches fire and all this other crap happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's very I don't know. I feel like you should be able to go a couple days without everything working.
No, but like we have very deliberately built everything so that there's no resilience in it. There's no give.
Yes.
As part of this project that we have to heighten contradictions and consider your contradictions heightened.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes the problem with having your contradictions heightened is sometimes it does kill you. And sometimes it does burn your house down,
Yes.
and the firefighters can't do anything because there's no water. But that's materialism. It's just sorry.
So I'm not saying everyone has to be a prepper. What I'm saying is that if certain parts of
You
infrastructure,
have to buy some communal self-defense tools.
Yes.
if some of
Non-metallic for reasons that I will leave up to your imagination.
in my ideal world, if for a couple days the power goes out, your building doesn't burn down.
No, your senator might.
Yeah. I don't know. This is just a catastrophic cascading failure.
Yeah, and like all of the people responsible for it are not only immunized from all of its consequences, but if anything, are being rewarded. Like the people who own those sort of energy bidding cartels, they're getting fucking rich off of this. They love this. They want to keep that pricing at the maximum for as long as they can.
Jerry Jones has been, fuck the Cowboys. Jerry Jones has been like publicly thrilled with what's happening. So, am I on mute?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't have anything to add that wasn't illegal.
I wasn't mad. I had muted myself earlier to eat, and I wasn't sure if I had taken myself off mute. That was just, listen, the podcasting delirium has set in. Soon I will be getting the podcast sweats. It'll be me and Roz losing 20 pounds an hour.
Man, I could fucking do with some of that.
Very much NASCAR type
I'm sitting in ass
situation here.
soup as we speak, so
I am right there with you.
Solidarity forever, buddy.
That old-fashioned radiator heat works. I gotta say, not an efficient system, but it does work.
If it's stupid and it works, then it's not stupid.
Yes. So we have a segment on this podcast called Safety Third.
Where the fuck is the shake hands with danger? Shake hands with danger. Why do I keep adding more drops?
You know why? Because you're out of control, Alice.
Shake hands with danger.
We could actually add the drops to Zencaster, and then you'd be able to click it from there.
I could do that, but I choose not to.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah, I prefer the tactile feedback of my drops button, right?
Mm-hmm. I like to be able to press the button and get
shake hands with danger.
Yes. So this is fun. This is a Safety Third I have not read before I put it in.
Editing on the fly once again.
That's the opposite of what we said we were going to do on the last episode.
Yep.
Yeah. Hello to everyone at WTYP.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Alan, you got to say hi.
Hi.
There we go.
What about Elf the cat?
Elf, say hi. He's quiet for the first
Tricky
time.
bastard.
Good Lord. So, this Safety Third happened to me a few months ago when I was volunteering on a project with the U.S. Forest Service.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Yes. Names and locations will be generalized so as to avoid possible identification.
Yeah, the forest.
The forest, yes. It's where
Big
Winnie
one.
the Pooh lives,
with
I
the
believe.
trees.
Yes. But rest assured, I remain good friends with the folks I volunteer with, and still volunteer with this particular organization. One weekend every month, the Forest Service. Hold on, I just resized the window and lost track of where I was. One weekend every month, the Forest Service calls for volunteers to do trail maintenance at a local hiking area. It's in a national forest, but it is not a park, national or otherwise. As you might expect, the individuals that this sort of outing draws together ranges from rather interesting outdoorsy people to total nuts.
Hmm.
It's a pretty sweet deal, though, since at the end of each work session, we all get together at a private campsite owned by the Forest Service. We make food, we drink beer, and we have fun. There's even a hot tub and a hot shower. One rainy Saturday in October, we were tasked with moving 3 utility poles from the parking area of a trail to about 500 feet into the trail, where an old footbridge the Forest Service built before I was born was beginning to sag. Being
So
outdoors...
you got to stop that before the Soviet Union has to come and fix it.
Yeah. Being outdoorsy people, we only ever cancel work sessions when there are dangerously high winds or 6 feet of snow. We had a pretty steady downpour for most of the day that day, which will come into play later. Our first task was to move the utility poles from the trail they were from the pile they were in at the trailhead about halfway up the trail. See diagram. I'm so hoping this is one. All right, so the utility poles are here, right?
Hmm.
And they're moving them here, right?
Right, I got you.
We were using a series of pulleys, steel cable, and a Forest Service issued Ford F-150 to move these 1,000-pound poles up the trail one at a time. In order to protect the trail, one of the volunteers welded us a cart to be used at the front of the utility pole as a connection point for the steel cable and the truck.
Now we're talking.
Yes.
I like this idea.
It was constructed pretty solidly, but its only flaw was that the center of mass of the utility pole was high above the axle. This will be important for later.
Mood.
Since we had only one cart, that meant that the back end of the pole was dragging along the trail at the mercy of the truck and the cable. Because of that, it was my job to steer the utility pole using a 6-foot-long, 50-pound steel rod. Four other people got suckered into doing this, meaning we had 2 people on each side of the log steering left or right. They actually wrote right or left, but I'm not good with that sort of thing, right? Watching this whole operation was an eccentric retired high school sports coach who has trouble communicating clearly.
Always a good sign.
Which is why we put him in charge of radio communications with the truck to tell him when to stop and go. The retired coach, from now on will be referred to as RC, had absolutely no idea what was happening or how to relay that to the truck, and more importantly, how to relay that to us. So RC was directing everyone with the most subjective instructions imaginable. Instead of telling the truck something simple like stop or go, he says things like ease it forward just a hair, step on it, and not so hard. This too will be important later. The rest of the crew and I were busy wedging away at this log while RC was giving vague instructions to the truck. It went relatively fine for the first 2 logs, but the last log gave us the most trouble. Since it's been raining pretty steadily all day, the trail was getting pretty muddy. Added on top of that was that myself, 5 fully grown men, and at this point, 2,000-pound utility, or added on top of that refers to the muddy trail, was me, 5 fully grown men, and at this point, 2 2,000-pound utility poles.
Jesus Christ.
This was compounded by the fact that the ass of the utility pole was dragging along the trail, taking absolutely everything out with it. It was so bad that when we drove our iron rods into the ground to steer, we ended up moving the dirt and not the pole.
Cool.
It's also worth noting that this particular trail had a steep drop that went into a creek and featured some areas where the path was extremely narrow. I had the misfortune of being the chump steering the poles where the path ran out. I was forced to move downhill to where I was at eye level with the poles to avoid falling off the trail and into the creek. You sort of see right here how that works with the rod. If something went slipped or wrong at this point, if something really?
What?
No, it says if something went slipped or wrong at this point.
I am
believe they
begging
mean
you
something-
people to spell check and grammar check your safety thirds.
If something were to have gone wrong,
If something, if this is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
I got soy sauce in my throat, dude. That does not feel good.
yeah, well, we killed Liam.
Sorry for your misophonia, folks.
This is the first
I'm
safety
gonna mute
third,
myself.
which has
I'll be
caused
back
a
in a second.
casualty.
Let me just like clear my nose here.
Oh boy, the commenters will love that.
I think I just gave birth.
Oh, congratulations!
Yes, congratulations.
I'm going to name it Alice
Unfortunately,
Justice
the
Fallon.
gender reveal is going to kill a lot more
Did
people.
you see that? That just happened like earlier today. Some guy was building a device for his baby's gender reveal, and it killed him. Some guy
Excellent work,
blew himself
47.
up on a baby-themed IED.
At some point, these gender reveals are starting to make me think that the only ethical choice is to be non-binary. I mean,
Yeah, because otherwise you're just going to have.
you're just encouraging these people.
I
If you
kind
have
of
a
do want to
gender,
do a gender reveal in that I just shoot rockets. Like the rocket launcher from Unreal Tournament 3. I build one of those.
Oh yeah, you got to do that.
well, yeah, you have the most comically violent gender reveal possible. It's like a nuclear bomb full of pink dye.
Why do you need to have a gender reveal for that? You can just do it. Right?
Just build a bomb.
What? Just do a nuclear bombing?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
I guess
so
that's
proud
true.
of you.
No, I feel like I need an excuse to like kill
That's 'cause you're a
300,000
coward.
people.
You're a coward. I will be over there tomorrow with censored materials.
Oh,
La,
Parody,
la, la,
redacted.
la, 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 la.
Yeah, you're Muslim. You're fucked. Sorry, bud.
Mhm. Well, I'll see you guys in Gitmo.
no,
Oh yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there.
Any FBI agents listening to this, we actually do not surprisingly have access to nuclear material.
He might not. Let's say we. Don't collectivize this.
I assume that's a cabal thing.
Yeah.
In which
Fallon, you
case
want to
probably-
talk about where we're going to drop the redacted after this?
It's probably authorized to do that.
Jesus.
So, all right. If something went wrong or slipped at this point, I most certainly would have been crushed by the log with no hope of running away fast enough. Luckily,
Yeah.
things didn't go down that way. Our third pole was the victim of money trail system, making it extremely hard to steer once we got to that narrow section of the trail. RC, the retired coach, wanted the truck to stop moving because we were about to move the pole over a stump, potentially risking a fall into the creek. So logically, he tells the truck to ease up. Of course, the guy in the truck had no idea what this is supposed to mean. He was out of the line of sight, so he decided to slow down but not to stop. This was the mistake that set everything into motion. The pole ended up moving over the stump in the trail and tipping over, causing the entire apparatus to fall into the creek. Luckily, nobody was downhill from the utility pole when it fell in. It was also still connected to the chain, which meant we could fish it out with the truck. The goal now was to redistribute some of the pulleys so we could pull the pole vertically out of the creek. It was at this point that RC conveniently had to leave the work session to be part of a wedding.
To be part of a gender reveal.
Yeah. We ended up replacing him on comms with a guy who looks like a twin of Sam Elliott.
Cool.
Needless to say, he wasn't that much better, but he did know the word stop and go. They decided to get me to do some bushwhacking off trail in order to pull up some new pulleys in a more convenient spot for fishing at the utility pole. I took this as an opportunity to get the hell out of the way of the path of any potential danger. Once everything was rigged up, things surprisingly went pretty smoothly until the pole was back on the trail. I'm looking at this diagram finally, and I guess the pulley system goes all the way out to the end and then back to pull the poles. Interesting.
Pull the poles?
To pull the poles.
To pull the poles,
Yeah, you
yes.
just grab Roz and drag him wherever he needs to go.
This is me. I'm supporting the bridge while the Sheik is generating electricity, yes.
Multiculturalism.
It's true.
This is the future liberals want.
There were several guys standing on the trail, but I was in the trees with the best view of this. For reasons beyond my understanding, the chain holding the utility pole to the cart slipped. We didn't have a backup rope or chain, so very suddenly everything lurched forward. One of the guys on the trail was standing right in front of it and got hit directly in the sternum with the full force of the pole.
Ooh.
He went flying back about 10 feet, tumbling over shrubs and thorn bushes, but luckily not landing in the creek. By some miracle, he got up and had not broken any bones. We asked him if he was okay, and he said he didn't know, and then he needed to walk around for a bit.
Fuck.
We called over the Forest Service guy from the truck, and we all took lunch to give everyone a break from what had just happened. Afterwards, the men in the group looked absolutely shell-shocked about everything. They refused to steer on the downhill side, meaning it was just me left to keep the utility pole from falling in the creek. Luckily, we didn't have that much more ground to cover and successfully got the last pole in a pile with the others. We called it mission accomplished and headed back to camp to celebrate. At the next month's work session, I asked the guy who got hit how he was doing, and he said his muscles were very sore afterwards, but he didn't bruise or fracture or anything. The Forest Service guy who organizes these events decided to take a break from the project for a few months given the circumstances, so we won't be headed back there until the spring. I still happily volunteer with them every month, but I have since moved to the less dangerous groups because I enjoy being alive. Plus, the longer I'm alive, the more I can listen to this podcast.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
You idiot.
Considering this
Just died in the woods.
This has been a well, this has been a podcast where we've expressed quite a few death wishes, actually.
That is true. This is like the most actionable episode we've done. Just out of the fact that like we've recorded it at such short notice that we all have brain madness.
We do all have brain madness.
I have not slept well in 4 days. Roz is melting. Alice is British. Whatever.
I'm on new meds, and they're kicking my ass.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
I feel you. I'm like awaiting.
These ones didn't make me want to join the police though. So something to be said for them
if you go through that again. And then someone will be like, "Well, what are you doing about it?" And we're just like handling it.
Listen, we'll start a Sting cover band. That'll be like joining the police.
That was tasty.
To everyone at WTYP, keep up the good work. As an engineering student, you are affirming my choice of major in electrical and computer engineering. Our mortality rate seems to be much lower than mechanical and civil engineers.
Not 100% true, but okay.
I was about to say you get that insta death in ECE.
It's not insta death. You just can't. You feel your body melting.
We can't complain about it, which is half the thing.
That's true.
You're not going to make anyone else feel bad, relatively.
just get your body melted like you're in that scene in Indiana Jones from electricity. That's what electricity really is. It's whatever was in the Ark of the Covenant.
Ooh, I get it. Ark.
The ancient welding Ark of the Covenant.
That's a good one.
But as my instructor said, it feels like an eternity to you.
Oh, great.
Cool.
Great.
Boy.
Wait, how would they know?
They've
done some
just
shit.
know.
They
Hmm.
probably got the every once in a while I get the old spicy wire.
Well, yeah. Have you ever been electrocuted before?
I try to avoid it. My profession, in my profession, my major danger is fall hazards.
I've
Your profession is podcasting
My
now,
profession is
in which the
podcast.
major hazard is getting
Yeah,
cancelled.
cancellation. That's honestly the worst thing that can happen to you.
And
right?
you can feel it the whole
The
time.
whole time.
It doesn't
yeah.
feel good.
Well,
Thank
I've
God.
spent my fair share on roofs, so there's fall hazards in my profession too.
Right. Yeah, that's like the big thing about solar panels is people falling off the roof.
Yes, and your high vis vest is not helping.
Our next episode will be about the Tacoma Narrows Bridge disaster.
That's right.
That's
Yes.
right.
Does anyone have commercials before we go?
We already did. Liam already did his up front. I am launching a new podcast. By the time this comes out, you will probably be able to hear it.
Yay.
It is called Kill James Bond. I have my friend Devon and Abby Thorne from Philosophy Tube. We are pursuing noted tuxedo dickhead James Bond through 24 movies and a bunch of other properties because we fucking hate his ass and we're gonna get him. It'll be available on like fucking Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
Calm down, Blofeld.
Shut up.
Oh, you liked that. I know you liked that low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, listen to that.
Will you do an episode on the original Casino Royale?
Oh, that fucking movie sucked so much.
If we do an episode on the original Casino Royale, will you guys come on for
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Then
Why
yes.
not?
Yes,
Fallon,
fine.
you want to do an ad? Talk about your stand-up?
Yes, come when Philly opens back up and it gets warm again. All please come to the Grape Room in Manayunk every Tuesday for your comedy open mic pleasures. Let's go, Grape Room.
Oh, I have one more ad.
boy.
Thanks
Is
to
it for something
shut up.
Illegal?
Shut up. No, maybe.
Okay.
It's
If you want to buy some fissile material,
please contact me at 717. I don't know what I'm calling it yet. Not a podcast. I am putting out a new episode this week. I got insta banned from Twitter, so as soon as I make another Twitter for that thing,
How did you do
insta ban?
that?
Insta ban. I liked my own Twitter account, or like I followed my own Twitter account. Insta ban.
Cool.
Apparently, they're unsympathetic to you posting links as a new account. So that's what happened to me. So once I get that off the ground, first episode's out. Second episode's coming this week. Yes, I will edit this one.
Will you though?
No, probably not.
Editing is for cowards.
Thanks, Roz.
Mm.
Thanks for all the work you do.
Do I have any commercials? I don't think I have any. Listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
Watch
listen to the
Franklin.
podcast that you've spent over an hour listening to.
Oh, right. We're all supposed to talk about our merchandise at Solidarity's Superstore. That should be a link. That link is in the description. We have a Patreon. It's got bonus episodes. You can listen to us ramble on for about other bullshit for even longer. Another thing we have is we have a P.O. box now.
Ooh.
That'll be in the description because I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Yes. So you can send us bullshit if you want to, and then we'll pick it up, and then we'll be able to like
We'll do bits about it. We'll
Yeah,
respond
exactly.
to it.
Do not send us anthrax.
Yeah, please
No.
don't.
Please do not send anthrax. We will be unhappy.
Also, Union Pete, if you're listening to this,
Respond to my
international
email.
shipping, international shipping, international shipping,
No, Liam and I are
International
We're just going to
shipping.
package it
manually.
ourselves.
international shipping,
No, Liam and I are going to do it. We've
international
committed to
shipping. I
this.
want my shirts. I want my shirts.
We will send you the shirts. We'll figure
Thank
out
you.
something shortly. So international people who live in foreign state code FN can in fact receive our things.
Good. Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. That's the end. That's the end of the podcast.
Bye, everybody.
Yes.